President Bush ran into Caspar Weinberger after he was charged in the Iran-Contra affair. Bush reportedly said, "Pardon me." Weinberger replied, "No, pardon me." Boy, I saw Clinton at the inauguration. He sure coughs a lot. I worry about him. And he's the president now. He's got to learn how to avoid drafts. Oops. President Clinton says that his favorite song is by Fleetwood Mac. Probably ruse that they ever dropped that nugget on us. We jam that song down his throat every chance we get. I thank God he didn't like ABBA, because I'm pretty sure that Fernando thing would have pushed me into expatriatism. I thought the choice between Bill Clinton and George Bush was like the choice between airline food and hospital food. Both of them will keep you alive, but neither one of them has you floating up in the air making that sound like the cartoon dog after he ate his biscuit. The man who would be Sinatra, Harry Connick Jr., was arrested at New York's Kennedy Airport for trying to bring a 9mm pistol through security. Unconfirmed reports say he was traveling under the name the Manchurian Candidate. Deep Space Nine premiered this month in national syndication. Star Trek fans are optimistic about the show's success despite the previous cancellations of Deep Space 1 through 8. The movie Boxing Helena premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in Park City, Utah. Controversial film is about a man who cuts off a woman's arms and legs and sticks her in a box. Alternate titles for the film were thought to be Sleeveless in Seattle and An Affair to Dismember. Izzy Stradlin this month kicked out of Guns N' Roses. What do you have to do to get kicked out of Guns N' Roses? Hey, Slash, you want to quit shooting heroin into your forehead? We're going to vote on Izzy over here. Forgot to return one of Axel's casserole dishes from that Satan party the other night. The Buffalo Bills should just never, ever go to the Super Bowl again. You know, these guys get eaten up like smuggled nachos at the Pritikin Clinic. The Super Bowl has traditionally been as one-sided as the week they let Stephen Hawking on Celebrity Jeopardy. Looks like big-time sports cheating may have finally tainted the famed Iditarod sled dog race up in Alaska. Perennial contender Susan Butcher is being investigated for feeding her dogs Cycle 6, the badass years. Mike Ditka. Insulting, profane, flush-faced, and physically abusive. Oh God, how Chicago loved him. But the Bears fired him this month after watching his team steadily slide after their 1986 Super Bowl victory. It's reported, however, that an impressive stockpile of jokes about Ditka's grotesquely oversized melon of a head will continue to be passed quietly in Chicago's humor underground, so long as Iron Mike stalks the earth. President Bush visited Somalia in a farewell tour. Maybe if he wasn't visiting all those other countries in the first place, he wouldn't be saying farewell. Japan chose a princess this month, a 29-year-old Harvard graduate. Hey, there's a pretty good job placement office they have at Harvard, huh? And plans were announced today to open a new Hard Rock Cafe in the Vatican. Hey, is that John's hat? President Clinton and his cabinet left for Camp David today to conduct encounter-style sessions about how to trust, share, and learn. Later, Hillary plans to make pot brownies, and Bill will lead the group in a sing-along of Kumbaya. President Clinton announced some of his cabinet nominees this month. Janet Reno, whoa, Lithgow and Garp. Lloyd Benson, of course, had to leave his job as the grandfather clock on the Captain Kangaroo show to come on board. And Warren Christopher looks like bad claymation. He's like a California raisin in a power suit. Warren, take it easy. Unwind. President Clinton's wife Hillary was called before the Senate this month to speak about the health care package. She was so intimidating to the older senators that they nicknamed her the Good Yoko. President Clinton said that he knew he wanted to be president from the age 16 on. When I was 16, I wanted to get my van detailed, and so did he. Well, the Oscar nominations are in. Jay Davidson was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and The Crying Game was nominated for Best Picture. Jay Davidson said he may not attend because he, quote, doesn't like the attention. Hey, it could be worse. They could have cast him opposite Lorena Bobbitt. Asian governments began deregulating TV airwaves, and commercial TV is booming, with 1.4 billion TV viewers watching. Satellite dishes have begun showing up in villages in rural China and crowded Tokyo. An Asia Today newspaper poll showed that 19% of Chinese people thought the satellite dishes were, quote, really, really big woks. Aladdin was the #1 movie at the box office, and in a related story, Aladdin and his flying carpet were admitted to the Mile High Club. TNT announced plans this month for a new miniseries, Beavis and Ben-Hur, a hipped-up look at some biblical revelation. I think the best goalie in the National Hockey League is this kid from Montreal, Patrick Waugh. He turns away more shots than a Mormon at an Irish wake. After sitting around the locker room for hours wearing scintillating micro briefs because his pants were stolen, Scott Davis won the U.S. Figure Skating Championship this month. Angered that the men were once again trying to show the women up, Tanya Harding-Galuli pulled a few strings, so to speak, and then literally skated right out of her uniform. Flushed with the spirit of the intergender competition, so many skaters introduced their backsides to the ice that ABC TV passed the whole thing off as an exhibition. In his days at the University of Kansas, MVP hoopster Danny Manning was said to find Coach Larry Brown so annoying he would have traded his national championship for a chance to play for someone else. So what happens just as Manning is ascending to all-star status with the LA Clippers? Brown is hired as coach. Oh man, do I know how this guy must feel. I was amazed that nobody in the trade press found it coincidental that my talk show was canceled just days after my vengeful fourth-grade English teacher, Mrs. Bailaki, was the surprise selection as Fox's head of programming. Soviet scientists successfully completed a test of their new space mirror. The mirror, approximately 75 feet in diameter, directed a 2.5-mile wide swath of light onto the Earth as it zoomed across the country. In an uncharacteristic gesture of giving credit where credit's due, the Soviet scientists publicly thanked Tori Spelling's dentist for his pioneering work in developing the technology. In Russia this month, a mirror-equipped satellite was able to turn day into night, shedding sunlight on a 6-by-2-mile swath as it moved over the country. Unfortunately, millions of her citizens swore off vodka the next morning, and the economy collapsed. Manuel Noriega said this month that he has found Jesus in a Dade County, Florida correctional facility. You know, Manny, I don't want to burst your bubble, but every other guy in that place is named Jesus, okay? Bill Clinton has been busy filling positions in his White House staff. This isn't exactly the most wizened group of politicos. Most of them think that Taft-Hartley was Bob's brother on the old Newhart show. President Clinton appeared on MTV to promote national service. He was accompanied by a starstruck George Stephanopoulos, who left in a snit after being told repeatedly that he couldn't meet Beavis or Butthead. President Clinton asked Congress for $45 billion to clean up the savings and loan mess. Hey, you know, for $45 billion, you should be able to get the country detailed. Bill Clinton this month got a $200 haircut on the tarmac at LAX, thereby shutting down the airport for over 45 minutes. $200 haircuts? You're missing the point, pal. Follicles do not a great leader make. Gandhi was bald. This is not why the John Does put you in office. And you know something, quite frankly, Mr. President, if that's going to be your modus operandi over the next 4 years, $200 haircuts, well, then you've got your head jammed so far up your butt we can't see your quaff anyway. 16-year-old Fred Savage was slapped with a sexual harassment suit by the Wonder Years' former costume designer. She claims Savage and co-star Jason Hervey made unwelcome physical advances and asked her to have an affair with them. She said the problems began during a costume fitting for an episode entitled Kevin's First Jockstrap. A jury found Kim Basinger guilty of breaching a verbal contract to star in Boxing Helena and slapped her with an $8.92 million fine. Either way, that movie was going to cost her an arm and a leg, huh? Socks mania hit hard as Bloomingdale's started selling gold enamel socks pins for $45. What next? Signature litter boxes? And in entertainment news, the Entertainment Coupon Book released their Entertainment 93 version. Anybody here ever had sex with a dinner date after they paid for it with an Entertainment 93 coupon book? Kind of tough to close the deal after you whip out that half-price Carnauba Wax Prime Rib Putt-Putt ticket. At this moment, she's not exactly reading you as David Niven. You know, the sport of boxing sure misses Mike Tyson. He punched harder than anybody in history except maybe Shannon Doherty on Jägermeister. The concept of free agency is complicated, but from what I can gather, here's the gist of it. Some guys want to play for free. That's it. I guess they're going to work out the details. Time for March Madness, the college basketball tourney. In the hallowed, time-honored tradition of seasons past, the winning team will shake hands, pick up their trophies, and declare for the NBA hardship draft, where they'll get paid the kind of money that makes you and me want to puke. Well, the World Boxing Association announced plans for a mega bout this month, the much-awaited Riddick Bowe-Hume Cronin heavyweight title fight. President Clinton sent the Haitian boat people back to Haiti today, and they changed the slogan on the Statue of Liberty from "Give me your tired, your poor" to "No shoes, no shirt, no service." As if the former Soviet Union isn't undergoing a dark enough transition to democracy, impoverished citizens were this month entertained by the gleeful spectacle of entrusted top official Boris Yeltsin smoke bombing his own parliament. You have to think this started with some burning sacks of dog droppings on the porch, and it just got way out of hand, didn't it, Borbor? Well, they finally unraveled the World Trade Center bombing case this month. Wasn't as hard to crack as they thought. They caught the guy walking around Cairo in a shirt that said, "I blew up the World Trade Center and all I got was this lousy t-shirt." And Saddam Hussein made some more rumbles and grumbles this month, probably as a nice farewell present to George Bush. "We should have taken this guy's throat out when we had the chance. He's the worst soldier in the history of the planet. Last time I saw a battle plan like that, I was playing Stratego with Judy Landers. This guy's Wile E. Coyote in a red beret. We were stomping him like a narc at a biker rally." FBI scrutinization of Attorney General nominee Zoe Baird revealed that she had neglected to withhold Social Security taxes from her nanny's paycheck. So far-reaching has the government's investigation become that they are allegedly watching Nick at Night to see whether Uncle Bill was above the board in his dealings with the aforementioned Mr. French. I don't think Clinton's an evil guy. I just think he's the sort of guy who volunteers to help you move, and then when you got 40 on the couch, he's the guy who fakes lifting. Boy, Clinton retreats from a lot of campaign promises. Usually when somebody backs up that much, you expect to hear that high-pitched beep a truck makes when you drop it in reverse. Rumbles this month that Dan Quayle might make a run for the presidency in 1996. You know, this guy didn't deserve to be second in command of the Hakawi tribe from F Troop, much less the third most powerful nation on the face of this planet. And this is not to say I don't miss Dan Quayle, because to me he was the Rosetta Stone of contemporary American comedy. But let's face facts, he deserved the vice presidency like Elvis deserved his black belt. I always thought Quayle was like Dan Tana's assistant Binzer on the old Vegas show. You let him answer the phone, but he does not drive the T-Bird. Now he's thinking of running for president in 1996? The day Dan Quayle was our president is the day Shelley Winters runs with the Bulls at Pamplona. Mia Farrow and Woody Allen have been battling it out in court. You know, this relationship was doomed from the start. Come on, a Jewish guy and a pharaoh? I'll take religious world history for 1,000, Alex. Vanna White has brought suit against Samsung Electronics for a print ad depicting a blonde-wigged gold robot, replete with evening gown and diamond jewelry. Samsung has countersued, contending that the robot's movements and personality were far more lifelike than Vanna's. And it's official this month. Michael Jackson and George Hamilton have now crossed lines on the pigmentation flowchart. It was announced by scientists this month that they estimate by the end of this century, via the means of virtual reality, a man will be able to simulate making love to any woman he wants to through his television set. You know, folks, today an unemployed iron worker can lay in his Barcalounger with a Foster's in one hand and a channel flicker in the other, and do it with Claudia Schiffer for $19.95. It's going to make crack look like Sanka. In an unprecedented move, the Baseball Players Association agreed a baseball player's salary should be based on his actual ability. April Fools! In the last 2 years, the New York Mets have lost more games than a farm kid at a video arcade. Hard luck baseball story is that poor pitcher for the New York Mets, Anthony Young. He's the guy who broke the record for consecutive failures previously held by, I believe, Judd Nelson. North Carolina upended the Fab Five of Michigan for the NCAA Men's Basketball Championship when sophomore superstar Chris Webber of Michigan called a timeout his team didn't have, and he was whistled for a technical foul. Disgraced, Webber was exiled to the NBA, where he'll have to endure a multi-million-dollar-a-year guaranteed contract, endorsement deals, private jet transportation, and burlap bags full of marriage proposals. If it doesn't kill him, it'll only make him stronger. Hang in there, Chris buddy. Owner Norm Green moved the Minnesota North Stars to Dallas. Together, the Los Angeles Lakers and Dallas North Stars will only add fuel to the conspiracy charges that a zany band of wealthy Minneapolis businessmen plan to humiliate scores of American cities by choosing Minnesota-specific names for their professional sports teams and then moving them. Loggers and environmentalists squared off over the spotted owl this month in Portland. You know, I don't see what the loggers have against these birds. I like the spotted owl. Tastes a little like chick-chick. Philip Morris announced a 40% price reduction for all their Marlboro cigarettes. Oddly enough, on the same day, the Marlboro man announced plans to have a 40% reduction of his right lung. A riot broke out Easter Sunday at the Lucasville Correctional Facility in southern Ohio. The riot was apparently sparked when the inmates discovered they'd been served the hollow chocolate Easter bunnies instead of the solid ones. And in health news this month, it was reported that the killer bees have moved up from South America into Texas and are taking jobs away from American bees. You know, Pat Buchanan is so homophobic he blames global warming on the AIDS quilt. All month long, Clinton staffers have been wearing buttons that read, "He's running a few minutes late." These buttons should flip over and read, "He's reneging on that promise, too." President Clinton, touring a riot-devastated area of south central Los Angeles, stopped by a basketball court for a quick pickup game with some of the kids. Never has the phrase "white men can't jump" been so vividly illustrated? President Clinton has pledged to curb global warming. Hillary has pledged to reform health care. And Chelsea has pledged to teach Socks the cat how to speak Spanish. Air Force Major Ben Merrill McPeak called President Clinton, quote, a gay-loving, draft-dodging womanizer. Clinton responded by asking, hey, what's your point? You know, I've given Clinton 5 months now, and I just can't take him seriously as a president. Maybe because he's the first president of my era. I at least used to look at presidents and think, well, they're older and they must be wiser. But I look at Clinton and I just think, wow, that's the guy who used to tap the keg. Paul McCartney expressed his dissatisfaction with Michael Jackson, who won't talk to Paul about changing his royalty structure. But this fray has been going on for a long time, ever since Jackson delayed production of their first record together. It seems Michael couldn't decide if he wanted to be ebony or ivory. I thought Michael always said it didn't matter if you were black or white. Pete Townsend takes a tame version of the rock opera Tommy to Broadway. The deaf, dumb, and blind kid leaves the bedlam of the arcade and becomes a network program director. The Disney Company is now serving alcohol at its Euro Disney theme park in an attempt to revive flagging attendance by European tourists. In a related marketing move, Disney also changed 4 of the 7 dwarves' names to Stinky, Tipsy, Stumbles, and Pukey. Bashful, Dopey, and Doc will retain their original names. After the Chinese women's track team shattered 8 records, doctors developed a stiffer test to see if these women are really men. It now consists of 2 parts, a saliva analysis and an essay, Why I Like Watching Melrose Place. We've got a jogging president. Recently, Bill Clinton clocked his fastest time in the Mao. Secret Service men heard him say, I smell sausage coming from somewhere. Took off like a shot. Free agent superstar Reggie White was courted by no fewer than 10 NFL teams in their cities with every imaginable extravagance. He maintained throughout, however, that he would sign with a team where he could make an impact working with troubled inner-city youth. After signing with the Packers of Green Bay, Wisconsin, White wasted no time in inviting both of the Dairy State's minority families to Thanksgiving at his place and unveiled his ambitious public service campaign, Snowball Fightin's for Losers. The Navy has been blamed for the sexual shenanigans that occurred against women at the Tailhook Convention in Las Vegas. The White House said the culprits would be punished and sent naked through a gauntlet composed of the cast of the Golden Girls. Plans by the Iraqis were exposed this month to kill George Bush on a visit to Kuwait. The plot did not work because it was apparently planned by the elite Republican Guard. And when Bush's limo backfired, they all jumped out of their cars and surrendered. The Senate held hearings today on President Clinton's plan to end the ban on homosexuals in the military. What is the big deal on gays in the military? I think the last thing you think of when a guy saves your life in combat is whether or not it's a come-on. Representative Dan Rostenkowski is being investigated for possible money laundering, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Washington, D.C. is the only place where these charges aren't a felony, but a career move. A wave of Cuban refugees floated to America on rafts made of inner tubes to escape Castro's death squads. Can you believe this? Foreigners going to Florida to avoid being shot? Congress wants to cut the CIA's budget. The CIA said, fine, we can always raise a little cash on our own. President Clinton nominated Ruth Ginsburg to the Supreme Court. Clinton said she fit all the qualifications for the job, talented, fair, a great judicial record, and was hit-proof by Clarence Thomas. President Clinton and his family have received more mail than any other first family in history. White House staff says that's because they were the first to actually send in the Publishers Clearinghouse envelope. Inspired by the success of Jurassic Park and the new amber jewelry fad, some Clinton aides were seen trying to lure Ross Perot into some sap-bearing maples in front of the White House. Can you believe that this month Bill Clinton appointed David Gergen to head up the White House staff? David Gergen? What, they couldn't get John Ehrlichman's home phone number? President Clinton denied he is being influenced by Hollywood types recently and said he should be paying more attention to casting his cabinet posts and getting a SAG card for Socks the cat. The Last Action Hero is open to not-so-great reviews this month. You know, giving Schwarzenegger a bad review is like telling Joe McCarthy he has to go to a union meeting. The Red Hot Chili Peppers are looking for a new guitarist. Hey, what kind of initiation does it take to get into that band? Just bring a guitar and a sock. Well, you know something? This month I took my son to Disneyland and I was on It's a Small World. Ran into a guy I hadn't seen since the 4th grade. Here's a little auto racing trivia for you. The always exciting British Grand Prix is held in Silverstone, England, which of course features the only non-stick track in the world. This is ridiculous. NBA basketball in June. Now the old farmer's saying's been changed to the corn will be knee-high by the 4th game of the Western Conference playoffs. Taco Bell now sponsors a drag racer. That's perfect, coming from a restaurant where the food burns through you in 6 seconds. 6 months after the Toronto Blue Jays won the World Series, the Montreal Canadiens defeated the Los Angeles Kings for the Stanley Cup. Aglow with national pride and gallons of skunky-smelling beer, a puckish band of hosers invaded Detroit and claimed it for their homeland. In a shrewd political maneuver, Clinton refused to take it back, which instantly gave Canada a higher crime rate than the United States. They sentenced the Rainbow Man, the guy that holds up those religious signs at the basketball games, for kidnapping. The jury held up a sign saying, "Rainbow Man, 10 to 20. The electronics magnate begins his trial for bilking millions of dollars of investors' money. What is this guy going to plead? No doubt temporary sanity. Suddenly, everything was clear. It is the centennial anniversary of Cracker Jack, and they have a 106-year-old man that not only ate the first box, but still has some of it wedged right there in his right front tooth. Survey shows that 69% of the people polled said that children over 18 should live away from their parents. The other 31 said they couldn't answer because they were busy making dinner for their sponging lump of flesh children. Diet Pepsi is fighting back after its tampering scandal. It announced its new slogan today: even with the needle, still just 1 calorie. William Kennedy Smith is about to end his residency soon and become a full-fledged doctor. I can't remember the last time I distrusted a Dr. Smith this much, but I think it was Lost in Space. President Clinton launched a missile attack on Iraq in response to an assassination attempt on President Bush. Even Clinton knows an easy target when he sees it. Hey, George, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Yeah! President Clinton publicly reprimanded 4 staff members for a bungled attempt to shake up the White House travel office. I think Clinton got mad because they kept trying to book him on Amtrak. I don't know. I liked Ross Perot, demented little Tolkien character with a gold card. Looked like Sergeant Carter with all the moisture sucked out of his body. Only 28% of the people polled said they thought that Clinton's approach to the economy was, quote, bold and innovative. 53% said it was, quote, tax and spend, and the other 17% thought Bush was still president. It was announced this month that a docudrama will be produced on the life of supermodel Claudia Schiffer. Oh, man, there's got to be a 7-picture deal in it for these guys if they can make central conflict out of the emotional scars from a broken nail in the 7th grade. And in Las Vegas this month, they had the 500,000th customer visit the Liberace Museum. Get the feeling somewhere along the line Liberace's parents refused to buy him a class ring. And the Theater Owners Association of America announced this week that they will impose a mandatory roof on the length of movie line messages when you call in to see what time the film you want to see is playing. Thank God I don't stay on the phone this long with friends contemplating suicide. And the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce announced this month that residents of Hollywood may now use CAT scans as film credits on their resume. The Seattle Mariners have the oddest cap in baseball. Somehow they made a simple S look like a moth hitting your windshield at 60 mph. A Kenyan athlete broke the 10K record this month with a time of 26:58:38, or about 4 minutes a mile for 6 miles. Oddly enough, he's on probation for cruelty to animals. Seems he killed his pet greyhound taking it out for a little afternoon jog. Vince Coleman lobbed an M80 and injured a 2.5-year-old fan. Hey, Vince, you're supposed to visit the kids in the hospital, not put them there, pal. Seeing Clinton with all those world leaders makes you think that maybe you really could be president one day, huh? American troops are still tied up in Somalia. The Marines haven't been too effective. Maybe it's time to send in the postal workers. Charles Keating will now definitely serve time for the savings and loan crisis. Going to be a tough transition for Mr. Keating from the SNL to the S&M, huh? If you played the lottery, hey, be careful. In Wisconsin, the pick 4 winning number was 3210. And a Wisconsin National Guard unit listening into the selection of the number on the radio accidentally fired off their Tomahawk cruise missile. Pilots report that the most challenging airports to land in the country were Washington National and LaGuardia in New York. The pilots said the New York runways were too short, and in Washington they were slick from the oil dropping off the greased palms of the politicians who land there. Vice President Gore said he wants to reinvent government. He will propose that the Social Security Administration answer its 800 number on the first ring and that the White House stop calling all those 900 numbers. Defense Secretary Les Aspin presented his plan for a smaller, cheaper military force. After seeing how incompetent the Russians have been lately, I would think all we need is a couple of mall cops and a beeper. President Clinton addressed a television audience trying to gain support for his $496 billion tax reduction plan. A new poll showed that 44% of the people oppose it on economic grounds, and the other 56% oppose it because he interrupted Seinfeld. What are you thinking? Vice President Gore said he was going to propose that the U.S. air traffic control system be government-run. I'd hate to think that landing depended on a system that had the same efficiency as the post office, huh? Tapes were released today of secretly recorded conversations that Michael Jackson's advisors used to allege an extortion attempt against the entertainer. Tapes contained the father of the child threatening the stepfather, saying, "Billie Jean is not my wife, and she thinks I am the one." Cryptic. And sadly, Burt Reynolds and Lonnie Anderson filed for divorce this month. Evidently, the settlement worked out well. Lonnie got mostly everything, but Burt did get the rugs. And this month, Weekend at Bernie's 2 came out. In this one, evidently they were able to extract some of Bernie's DNA from a piece of fossilized amber. And I appeared this month in Washington, D.C. doing a benefit for people making more than $200,000 a year. Poor skeletons, the living dead. Injured baseball players get put on all sorts of lists: the 15-day disabled list, the 30-day disabled list, the physically unable to perform list. I swear yesterday the Giants put Barry Bonds on the think I might have swallowed a bug list. Third base coach. This guy's about as integral as the tambourine player in Zeppelin. Soccer's World Cup is in the United States next year. The only way the U.S. could qualify was, in fact, to host it. The American soccer team is yet to beat a country that's not suffering from a severe drought. You know, we'd have a tough time beating Gilligan's Island. Skipper, I'm open! The Defense Department has admitted faking Star Wars tests to fool Congress and the USSR. I think the thing that should have tipped them off was that the test was presented by David Copperfield. And this month, more bombings in Beirut, Lebanon. You know, this city is about as stable as Crispin Glover. A study this month revealed that children from single-parent homes have much better verbal skills than children from two-parent homes, but children from two-parent homes were far superior at bitterly sarcastic repartee. And an odd story this month: Lorena Bobbitt, a housewife, evidently took a butcher knife and sliced off the genitals of her husband, John Wayne Bobbitt. They were eventually sewed back on, but I guarantee you, J.W. Bobbitt is walking a lot like the Duke nowadays. After Al Gore announced plans to reinvent government and slash red tape, Republicans announced their plan to have the remaining red tape manufactured in Mexico. The White House is considering higher taxes on beer, alcohol, and cigarettes to pay for its health care reform. If the general public can't afford beer, alcohol, and cigarettes, hey, they won't need health care. Defense Secretary Les Aspin said yesterday that the Clinton administration's goal for reshaping the post-Cold War military is $13 billion short of its goal. But he admitted later that they will be able to make up the money by cutting down on a toilet seat or two here and there. President Clinton's health care reform package will propose regular report cards instead of malpractice suits. Now, after a botched operation, you may not get a multi-million-dollar settlement, but you will get the satisfaction of knowing your doctor got an F on his report card. White House officials said that workers would pay federal income tax on health benefits and then announced plans to tax air, the word pencil, and any money left under your children's pillow. Handicapped protesters lined up in front of the Jerry Lewis Labor Day telethon over the weekend, complaining about being treated with mawkish pity. Lewis denied ever exploiting anybody through a spokesman that looked unusually like him, except for buck teeth and squinty eyes. Actress Zsa Zsa Gabor has paid a 4-year-old bill for a hairdo she says she never got using money from a career we never thought she had. Rolling Stone magazine announced this month that in a voter poll of their readers, the Grateful Dead's best song was thought to be The Short One. And actor/hunk Fabio appeared on the cover of People magazine this month. Fabio? Really? Fabio? You know, I think we as a culture have to recommit ourselves, because I'm not quite sure we're pursuing the trivial ardently enough. Trust me, even Fabio didn't pick up a copy of this week's issue of People. If you really want to curb the crime rate among collegiate athletes, just institute the following punishment. If they get caught, they must actually attend classes. I think the National Hockey League is taking their anti-violence crusade just a little too far. I mean, from now on, all these Zamboni ice cleaning machines must have airbags. Don't be confused if you hear about golf's Grand Slam. The Grand Slam in golf is made up of the Masters, the U.S. Open, 3 eggs, and 2 sausage patties. Toast as you like it. A new survey shows that only 1 in 10 people have donated blood in the last year, and of those, only 2 of 10 planned it. Deborah Gordine, the most recognizable figure in the HUD scandal, went on trial this month. Ironically, if convicted, she will get free housing from the government for many years to come. After 4 years lying in state, the Philippines is allowing the burial of past President Ferdinand Marcos. This guy deserves a decent burial like Goober from Mayberry deserved his own series. Virginia fertility expert Cecil Jacobson, who inseminated women with his own sperm, lost an appeal on fraud and perjury charges. Jacobson is in jail, where he says he passes the time by mixing business with pleasure. Catherine Ann Power, wanted for her involvement in the killing of a policeman in 1970, turned up this month. Seems she was hiding out as Lumpy Rutherford's wife on the syndicated hit Still the Beaver. Conservative Republicans took to the road this week trying to sell their version of health care reform. Their version is a combination of Clinton's new tax program and his health care plan, giving coverage only to rich people making over $200,000. A woman in Raleigh, North Carolina, reported finding 2 syringes and a bottle of tomato ketchup in a restaurant. I think it's just the White House trying to merge the Reagan daily vegetable requirement with the new Clinton health care plan. Janet Reno pledged a full investigation of Commerce Secretary Ron Brown's alleged influence peddling. Brown said he was already tipped off to the investigation by a TV news crew from Waco, Texas. The Senate voted to allocate $640 million for the Texas-based superconducting super collider. The Senate denied money, however, to allocate funds for the superconducting supercalifragilisticexpialidocious collider. Maryland, the opera about Marilyn Monroe's life, opened in New York this month. While many left the opera early during the premiere, true opera buffs know it wasn't over until Ted Kennedy sang. Season premiere of Baywatch occurred this month. Sorry, I have a little crick in my neck from watching Hasselhoff holding his stomach. Excuse me, but when did Bruce Jenner turn into Miss Hathaway from the Beverly Hillbillies? Bruce, ease back on the caloric burn throttle. Have a Cinnabon. You're starting to make Ichabod Crane look like Lee Haney. Well, the Jurassic Park action figures came out this month, and I bought one for my son. I got him the Thesaurus. This is a tiny creature who often used flowery language to extricate himself from potentially life-threatening situations. San Francisco 49er Jerry Rice once again leads the NFL in touchdown passes. He has now officially scored more than Nirvana's Kurt Cobain. Football has changed Atlanta's neon Deion Sanders and is protesting because he wants to wear his own jewelry on the football field. I think it was Vince Lombardi who said, "Winning isn't everything. Good accessories are everything." Pernell Whitaker fought Julio Cesar Chavez this month. Some claim the judging was less than stellar. 2 judges declared a draw, with the third giving victory to Pernell Roberts, Adam on TV's beloved Bonanza. Ex-Cincinnati Reds second baseman Joe Morgan was awarded almost $800,000 in a suit against the LA Police Department on a brutality claim. The LA Police denied roughing up Morgan because he was black. They said he merely got caught in spring training for the LAPD. Pope John Paul II announced a score of, quote, intrinsically evil behaviors and warns dissenters not to challenge the list. Next week, he plans to announce a list that is not just for priests. A La Jolla, California surfer Kary Mullis won the Nobel Peace Prize in Chemistry for a fundamental breakthrough in genetics. You know, this guy is the first Nobel winner to use the phrase "bitchin' dude" in his acceptance speech. The FBI promoted a woman and a Latino to the post of assistant director in an attempt to show that they are more sensitive to minorities. The agents in the office of the new assistant director celebrated by having a party and hitting a piñata filled with tampons. The United States Postal Service has a new corporate logo featuring an eagle's head. I think the eagle is an appropriate symbol since it is almost extinct, usually bald, and last, but not least, it is known to occasionally wear black knee-high socks with shorts. Senator Bob Packwood of Oregon was said to be thinking about resigning so he wouldn't have to reveal his personal diaries. I guess this proves Packwood's pen is even mightier than his sword, huh? President Bill Clinton took his turn bashing health insurers' television ads. The insurance companies now say they would like to respond to the health care crisis, but since it was in place before the Clinton administration, well, they consider it a pre-existing condition, and it's not really their responsibility. The Senate voted 94-6 to enforce an ethics committee subpoena of Senator Bob Packwood's diaries. Packwood is calling this a violation of his rights. He says he feels dirty, used, and like a secretary for Bob Packwood. Heidi Fleiss told Connie Chung on her show Eye to Eye that she would not reveal the names of the people who were in her little black books, but she did say she may cross-reference them with the Packwood diaries. Scientists reported that Jupiter is expected to collide next July with the Shoemaker-Levy comet. They went on to say that Jupiter should have no effect on the Shoemaker-Levy wedding scheduled for the same month in Des Moines. It was announced this month by an independent study that most people have now crazy glued down the scan button on their remote control, and the average American attention span is that of a ferret on a double espresso. Universal Studio Tours this month announced their 1 millionth customer at their famed earthquake simulation ride. This is a ride that actually recreates an earthquake measuring 7.2 on the Richter scale. Imagine a poor tourist who's on this ride at the precise moment the actual quake does hit. This is so real. Whack! Excuse me, my husband's been decapitated. You want to kick back a couple beans on the admission price? I'm from the old school. I need to sweat when I work out. I don't feel I've accomplished anything unless I'm sweating like a Supreme Court nominee who used to smoke pot. The American Bowling Congress is currently the only Congress in which Bill Clinton has any influence. Almost 1 year to the day after winning the heavyweight title from Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe shows up for the rematch, a bloated, saggy 250 pounds, and is pounded by his older, smaller opponent. Bowe explained that he picked up the strategy from Buster Douglas, who 3 years ago apparently stepped off a saturated fats of the world cruise just in time to defend his title against Holyfield. A doctor who is a fan of Michael Jordan is using his name in reference to a stomach disorder. The disorder is named Salmonella Jordan. Jordan said, "I consider myself the luckiest man alive, even luckier than Lou Gehrig, in that I have a disease named after me and I'm not afflicted with it." It's hard to fight a fire in Malibu because you need script approval before you can turn on the hose. The Malibu fire was said to be started by an arsonist. The typical profile of an arsonist, they say, is a young white male who is a loner with a history of problems. It's also the typical profile of anybody at a Metallica concert. A survey shows that metal detectors in New York City schools have reduced the number of weapons carried by students. The schools said they may now use the metal detectors as part of an IQ test to see how many students try to smuggle a metal gun into the school through them. A new study shows that an herb used for thousands of years in China may be helpful in the treatment of alcohol abuse. Unfortunately, the herb is marijuana. And the White House announced plans for their first female Santa Claus this month. You might not want to scream ho 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 at this one. And this month, President Clinton lit the White House Christmas tree, but insists he did not inhale it. Senator Patrick Moynihan is proposing a huge tax on bullets to help stop crime and pay for health care reform. This won't work. I don't think criminals work out a budget for their crimes. I'd like to rob that bank, Bob, but we just can't afford it right now. After the success of Mrs. Doubtfire, it was announced this month in Hollywood that Robin Williams will join Jay Davidson and Dustin Hoffman in the remake of Steel Magnolias. Barbara Streisand donated her 24-acre Malibu estate to the Santa Monica Mountains Conservatory Group. Boy, you know the real estate market is down in Malibu when Babs goes out for that kind of tax write-off, huh? Get the feeling Michael Jackson has a portrait of himself in the attic that gets darker with each passing year? Zsa Zsa Gabor, the loser in a suit filed by Elke Summer. Zsa Zsa must now pay Elke $1.2 million. You know, I looked up the derivation of the name Zsa, and Zsa is Hungarian for Sirhan. And the video game industry has announced plans to police itself and institute a warning code for parents on some of their more advanced, shall we say, games. In addition to G, PG, PG-13, and NC-17, there will also be a new video game listing, IQ 80. People under 80 need not apply. The National Professional Indoor Soccer League starts its playoffs soon, and what a first prize. The winning team will be allowed to disband and resume normal lives. This guy, Shaquille O'Neal, gets no help from his teammates. He scores 30% of Orlando's points and gets 40% of the rebounds. That's the kind of backup Pacino got in Serpico. I love watching the senior golf tour. Where else could you see a Craftmatic adjustable golf cart? The Heisman Trophy race for best college player is a tad dull this year. Here's how bad a year it is from the Heisman standpoint. Sinbad's in fourth place. Coaching is a fragile profession. UCLA head basketball coach Jim Herrick's job could be in danger. In this year's Bruin Press Guide, his position is listed as guest lecturer. The Space Shuttle Endeavour is launched to repair the Hubble Space Telescope this month. The repair mission will cost about $251 million. You know, if the mission is successful, the telescope will be so powerful it will be able to see from space just how much trouble NASA is in. You know who loves Clinton's problems is Bush. You know Bush is sitting down in Houston in a condo with a bong in his undies watching C-SPAN. Barbara, bring me a Corona. I think he just hired David Gergen. Plans to bring the French abortion pill to the United States have stalled because the pill's maker is afraid of anti-abortion groups' opposition. If they want to get those pills into the country, they should just smuggle them inside French people's armpits. Not even the Right to Life movers are that committed.